Hello, happy Wednesday. I hope wherever you are that you and your loved ones are safe and well, that you're having a good week and a good day. I'm just going to apologize in advance for the scatteredness. Is that a word? It is a word now of this video. I can't help it. This has been just an all over the place kind of a day or few days, and so I'm just running with it. I went to see my hematologist earlier today for my checkup post Eliquis. Like, he had wanted me to redo some blood work once I was about like 4 to 6 weeks out from my last dose, to check my clotting factors and my D-dimer, which off the top of my head I can't remember why that's important, but it has something to do with clotting. But it had to be without the Eliquis. So anyway, my hematologist is a science guy. Like, he could be a professor. Maybe he is a professor. I don't know. But he's very bothered by the fact that we don't know where the clot came from that ultimately caused my stroke. And so he gets all Perry Mason about it and starts to like go through different scenarios. And I'm just going to say this now. I used to be like that. I remember being like that when I started nursing school, and before that, if I had, sick relatives, or the older I got, when I was younger, not so much, because I didn't know that was even a possibility. But I loved digging in. Like, I loved looking at the images. I wanted to be an OR nurse when I started nursing school. But then the further I got into it, I found a different specialty that I wanted. And then when I hit, mother, baby, and maternity and women's health, it was like, that was all she wrote. I wanted that. And, but OR nursing was where I wanted to go. And I loved like wound care, not to be gross, but I still love wound care. Like, I have no problem, if it's other people. And like, I don't know, something about, anyway. So I was like that. I wanted to know the whys. I wanted to dig into the details. And if it was especially like somebody in my family, oh, I wanted to know. I wanted to know why the doctor didn't know. I wanted to know why the doctor's doctor didn't know. I mean, I was in there. I would go to different appointments with people, and I was thinking about my grandmother, who would have been 110 on September 11th. I mean, and she died right before her 101st birthday. I mean, how crazy is that? But I was thinking about all the appointments I used to go to with her, and she was very proud of all of us, and she would talk about the different professions in the family and how many people were a different profession. And she was very proud of the fact that my sister, my cousin, myself, that we were nurses. And she had eye surgery once. And the first words out of her mouth when she woke up from her eye surgery, I'm like, "Hi, Graham, it's Becky. How are you?" And she's like, "Isn't my doctor good looking?" She did it to me every time. And it was mortifying for everybody. First of all, I was long married at that point. And I was like, "Graham," I'm like, "Oh." The poor doctor would be there. All the female nurses or doctors were cute. Aren't they adorable? And it's like, they're like 20 years older than me. How can I be sitting here telling people how cute they are? But every doctor, isn't he good looking? When they're this close to the person. And I would be like, please forgive me. Forgive her, because she can't help herself. She was quite the character. But I used to go, and I would, like, especially with her eye and stuff, like, they would be explaining all of these issues to me, and I would be right in there wanting to know and looking at images and everything, and I didn't care. And like, I mean, I cared, but I didn't care about how it didn't make me queasy or anything. I think since my stroke, especially, and the heart and everything. I don't want to know that stuff. About myself. If it's about somebody else, absolutely, I am capable of hearing it and seeing it and knowing about it. Why am I telling you this story? I can't talk about my own blood and stuff with people. I don't, like, not with people, like as if I'm having random blood conversations, but with my doctors. And my hematologist likes to get right in there and talk about epithelial cells and the platelets. And I'm just like, so today, it's really bugging him that we don't know. And he's like, did you have a clot you didn't know about in your, and maybe you had an asymptomatic clot in your leg. Now, if it's an asymptomatic clot, how would I know if I had it? Obviously, I wouldn't know, right? So he's sitting there talking to me, and the more he's talking, I swear on my life, the more I thought, I'm going to pass out. And my mask felt too tight, and my skin felt too tight, and I thought, dear God, I'm going to fall off this chair. And I thought, oh, please stop. Please get a phone call. Please get called out of the room because I can't talk about it anymore. But he was too into it for me to be like, oh, excuse me, I don't want to know, because he like gets right in there and it's like, whoosh, you're on that ride with him. And so he's explaining to me the reason he went into that today, aside from, the detective work he's trying to do for me, which I'm sort of like, I'm alive, and to quote one of my favorite bands on one of my favorite songs, nothing else matters. I don't want to know. I'm here, I'm alive, and that's all that matters. I'm here, I can handle everything else. But the reason he brought that up was because I told him about my back injection of last week, and he said, they had you stop the aspirin beforehand, right? No, they did not. In my previous life of having a non-scattered brain and a good memory and my nursing self, I would have remembered that myself. Post-stroke Becky's brain goes about 4,000 miles an hour at some moments, and in other moments it's like, is this thing on? Honestly, I don't know what kind of a day I'm going to have, but I am all over the place. And I'll be honest, I'm glad I write every week. I force myself, even when I'm having can't put a focused thought together kind of a week, and that I film, because sometimes I watch things back and I read my own words to remember what the heck was happening, because I don't remember, or I don't remember the right order or the right details. And this has been, I highly encourage all of you to write things down and keep a real record for yourself, because if, God forbid, something traumatic happens, then you'll have a running record of this. I don't know anymore. You know what I mean? I don't know anymore. But I said, no one told me about stopping the aspirin. And I said, just like no one told me not to go to the dentist. And so he was sort of really annoyed about that. Not sort of, he was really annoyed about that. And he said, are they going to be doing more of these? And I said, well, hopefully not, but probably in all likelihood. And he said, they need to be very careful, especially when you're poking around near your spinal cord. And I was just like, oh, please, man, I'm begging you. I'll give you $1 to stop. Stop talking about things. I can't handle it. Can't handle it. And it bothers me because, oh my gosh, I used to be able to talk about it and deal with it and think about it and like run with it and write it down and look it up. And now I'm just like, la, la, la. But today I was just disassociating. I just couldn't, he was so deep in the explanation of why, about aspirin and blood vessels and oh man, I was just like, dude, I'm gonna fall on the floor. And then I thought, but I can't pass out. So I was this is the truth. I was doing this with my left hand that he could not see, because I thought, if I pass out, they're going to admit me, and I don't want to be admitted to the hospital. That's where my head went. I'm too polite to stop people, but I'm like, please stop. So I was like pinching my own skin. And then I walked into a piece of furniture the other day. I've done it before, but this is a doozy. I have a 2x3 bruise on my thigh. And so I tapped the bruise because I thought, pain, I'm awake. Pain, I'm not going to pass out because I wanted to pass out. And so finally he stops talking about my blood vessels and the who's its and what's its galore of my blood. And I said, so when do I need to come back? And he said, oh, let's do 6 months and we'll redo everything. So I was like, okay, cool. I leave and it was very backed up. They had technical issues. The computers were down and it took me 20 minutes just to get from the lobby to the floor. It took another 10 minutes to get checked in, maybe longer. And then it took like an hour to get into the exam room. So I was like, whatever. I didn't have anything else going on today. So I was like, fine. I think I had an 11:30 appointment. I think I left at 1:30. I leave the hospital and I'm standing on the corner waiting to cross the street. And right next to me is the neurologist who I met after my stroke. He took care of me after my stroke, who discharged me from whatever. I don't know what possessed me to do this. But I look at him and he looked right at me. Now, I didn't have a mask on in the street. I had it on out of the hospital, obviously. But when I got outside, I had been in there so long, I was like, I'm going to get some air from my face. And he looked right at me, and we made eye contact, and it was awkward. So I went, oh, hi, Dr. So-and-so. And I, in that moment, realized he's not going to know who you are. He's barely ever seen me without my mask on, number one. And I don't know him long enough to have like a, hey, kind of a relationship like I have with my other doctors. I don't know what I was thinking. It's like when I was still working in the schools and the kids would walk up to me and be like, oh, hi, Miss Becky. Not a name I gave myself, just as a sidebar. Someone else gave me that name and the kids liked it and it stuck for 10 years. So I would be like, oh, hi, kids that I vaguely recognize, but I have no idea what your names are. But you're like, oh, hi, in that moment, as if you remember them. And it's so awkward. And so he looked at me and he said, hello. And someone else walked up behind me and started talking to him. So I went, oh, have a good day. And I just took off. So then he comes up again next to me and he's like, I wasn't expecting you in that moment. I didn't mean to. So I was like, no, it's fine. He's like, so how have you been? Oh, it was awful. I said, oh, I just left the hematologist. Everything looks good, whatever. And he's like, oh, great. I said, well, you have a good day. And we're walking along this main thoroughfare, and I completely diverted just so that I could keep away. And like, we wouldn't be walking next to each other, and he wouldn't feel compelled to talk to me because I thought, oh my gosh, he's probably thinking, who is this weirdo that stopped me on the street and was like, hey, but it must happen a lot because you're walking in your medical coat with your name on it and people go to your office, they're gonna know you and say something. Not my finest hour. But anyway, so no, I did not stop the aspirin before my injection, and afterward the person who assisted my doctor put the smallest, I'm trying to find something tiny, here's a pen. The Band-Aid was barely bigger than that. It was one of those little circle Band-Aids. Put that on the injection site, and I go to leave the office, and I stopped in at the restroom, and let me just tell you something. I went back and I said, I'm sort of bleeding through my clothes at this point. And so the nurse had to put a compression thing on. It stopped pretty fast, but who puts like a pencil point Band-Aid on top of an injection over your spinal cord? I mean, honestly, it's like, oh my gosh. So we have to have a conversation when I go back in October, because the nurse said, what happened? I said, look at the Band-Aid. And she took it off, and it was this teeny-weeny little Band-Aid. And it was just a matter of they didn't put enough pressure on it, whatever. It was fine. But when I told the doctor that, he said, that's not just because they put the wrong Band-Aid. He said, it's because they didn't tell you to stop the aspirin. I was like, probably, yeah. But yeah, it was an eventful day, eventful moment, eventful life. I don't know. This is already going on way too long, so I'm just gonna play this version back, and if I don't feel like crying watching it because of the scatteredness of it, I'll post it to YouTube and you'll all see this version. I hope wherever you are that you have a low pain, no pain, low aggravation, no aggravation kind of a day, kind of a week, and kind of a weekend to come. Because that is what we hope for, that is what we deserve, and that is what I wish for each and every one of you. I hope you are well. I hope you are having a good afternoon. Take care, be well. Have a good night. Bye.